Welcome back to Unfiltered Unspoken. And as we said, we're going to continue to share life experiences of others to help others in hopes that they will connect to their life experience. Today we have Melanie Yodkins, and she's going to tell you a little bit about, we're going to go into her traumas, into healing, and you know how it goes. We're going to bring Melanie up to introduce herself, and then Sid is going to kick off the first question. Hey, Melanie, welcome to Unfiltered Unspoken.
Hello, I'm excited to be here. Hi everybody. I'm Melanie Yodkins. I am an actor, a coach, specifically an acting coach and public speaking coach. I've been in theater for over 25 years. I'm a mom. I'm a cat mom. I'm a skin baby mom. I'm a plant mom. I love to create. I like to make art. Um, I lived in East Tennessee, the part that pokes out into North Carolina. Moved down here about 15 years ago from Connecticut, so I've been all over the place. I love to travel. I enjoy music, and what brings me the greatest joy is helping other people and being able to kind of usher them from point A to point B if that's within my realm of possibilities.
Wonderful, wonderful. So we always start from the beginning. So, how was life growing up? What was your childhood like? Was that maybe the first kind of moment or time period of when you might have started experiencing any hurt, trauma? What was life like at that time?
Ooh, man, we're just diving right in. So growing up, I'm the middle sister of three, and we lived on this little homestead in a very rural part of Connecticut. I was homeschooled for much of my life. All three of us were truly, um, and within our homeschool group, you kind of forge these deep friendships with people, or you think that they're deep friendships. And one of the folks that was supposed to be my best friend ended up being the first person who really kind of traumatized me in that way. We were at each other's houses all the time, and when I was about when I was 7, I got into the theater. So I was witness to a lot of really interesting things and great people and fascinating lifestyles and life choices, which for me was very empowering. And I felt like I could just express myself and be comfortable with who I was. And when I was about 10, I made this new friend to the homeschool group, and she um, she was a bully, a bully and a half, and um, she would uh, she would take great joy in like pinning me down and just kind of like holding my hands above my head and saying, try to get out," and laughing about it. And it was a joke. And we, it escalated quite a bit from there. She was the first person to hit me and tell me that I deserved it. She was the first person um, who molested my body, who touched me in places that I wasn't sure how to feel about it. At 10, 11, 12, there's a lot of raging emotions and hormones and confusion. And for some reason, I accepted that this was a normal friend thing to do. And that's kind of where a lot of things started for me.
So this was your best friend. She molested you for 3 years.
Mhm.
When did you say you had enough? Did you go tell someone or you just kept it a secret?
I was told that I was to tell no one, because if I did, she would deny it, and who would believe me because I was a liar. And um, we had gotten into a lot of different scrapes prior to where it set me up as the liar. I remember this one time we had been on a trip, and we're sitting in the back seat, and it was a big joke learning cuss words. And so she had written them out on this piece of paper, and we crumpled it up because nobody needed to see that. And my parents came to me one night and called me into the living room, and my mom held up this note and she goes, "What is this?" And I explained, like, my friend and I were joking around, and she wrote the note, and my mom goes, "This is your handwriting." And I said, "I didn't write that." And she goes, "Well, she said the same thing, and this is your handwriting." And what ended up happening is I had to stand there with the dictionary in front of both of my parents. I remember my dad was sitting here, my mom was sitting here, and I had to read the definition of each word, like read the word, read the definition of the word, and use the word appropriately in a sentence. And that was kind of the last straw for me. I was so embarrassed to have to say those words in front of my parents. and and it broke me that they believed her over me. Um, and it kind of proved that she was right, that if I had said anything to them, they wouldn't have believed me. And so I just kind of started making reasons why I couldn't go to her house, or I didn't want her over, or I was busy with theater stuff, and that was kind of my escape, was back into the theater world where nobody was hurting me. and and it kind of built this barrier between my parents and I. Um, like, truthfully, it wasn't until this last year that I even told my mom what had happened with this girl. And um, I'm 34 now, almost 35, and in the last year, I told my mom.
Wow. And how was, her reaction to that? Did she even, like remember, it as vividly as you did?
She remembered quite a bit. She had asked, because we were talking about some folks that I had looked up on Facebook. I'm like, oh yeah, random people that I thought about and decided to go Facebook stalking. And and she was like, "Oh, what do you know about this girl's name?" And I was like, "Not a damn thing. Like, no, didn't even look." And she goes, "That was really hostile. What's up?" And so I looked at her and I said, "You don't know. And why would you? You and her mom were best friends." And she goes, "Yeah, and I said, "This is what she did to me." And I laid it out, and she goes, "How did I not know? How did I miss this? Why didn't you tell me?" And I said, "Because you didn't believe me when I told you I didn't write cuss words on a piece of paper that you could easily have found." And half jokingly, because that's how we deal with trauma, is we make jokes about things, right? Um, I said, if I was gonna make lists of all of the cuss words that I knew, I wouldn't be dumb enough to leave it crumpled up in the van.
And so, did your mother apologize? Did she show any guilt? Like, it's almost when a child and you start to make changes and you're rejecting going over her house. Your mother never said anything in that process. Why don't you want to go?
No, no. Shortly after I stopped hanging out with her, they moved away. And part of that was because my mom had found out that the dad had been cheating on the mom. And so she kind of attributed it to all of these different things, not necessarily an abrupt, "Oh, you don't want to hang out with her anymore" kind of thing. And there were other instances where I had gotten in trouble for stuff that we had collectively done, and she thought maybe I was turning over a new leaf and I didn't want to be the troublemaker anymore. And so she never put it together that there was something that was really fueling that, other than I just didn't want to be a part of the trouble anymore. Um, but here we are, 20 years later, and she's like, "I am so sorry." And she goes, "I should have asked more questions. I should have been there for you. I should have listened to you when you were telling me that this is how you saw things and this is what you were experiencing. And I should have asked more questions. And it never occurred to me to do that."
And you kind of went into what I was going to ask next. It From what you, I guess, experienced, since you guys were that close and spending that much time together, um, was her home life rocky? that you could see or that you could remember that might have caused her behavior to be that way?
I don't remember her home being anything out of the ordinary. To me, it was, she was an only child. They lived on a lot of land. They had a crazy amount of animals. Her dad was a rough person around the edges, but like he didn't really talk to me about anything. He didn't make himself um, a real presence in their home that I remember. Um, he was a big presence when we snuck out the window and decided to wade in the creek overnight. But um, but in the home, it wasn't like they had big family dinners where we would sit around the table and it felt like family. Um, her parents seemed to have a decent relationship. They were chatty. They were not that they were huge on PDA, but he would give her a hug. She would give him a kiss. To me, that was gold because my parents didn't do that. Um, but it seemed normal in so many ways, and then not normal in other ways, and then there were excuses to make it normal. And so it just never occurred to me that I deserved better than that, I guess. And then as a 10-year-old, I just wanted to be accepted by the person that said she was my best friend.
So did I heard you say that her parents would tell her that they loved her, but your parents didn't tell you that they loved you. Is this something that you went through the whole child? Did this create a, a trait or a difference within you?
No. So my parents would tell me they loved me, but they would never have that connection with each other in front of me.
Okay, got it, got it. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So, they weren't touchy feely people. I mean, my mom is a words of affirmation person.
Uh-huh.
So like huggy stuff has never been her forte. My older sister and I are very huggy people. Like you meet us and we're just like, we're just gonna hug. Like if you're cool with being touched, we're hugging. Um, but my parents were never that kind of huggy. They never kissed each other. They never kissed us. Like that was just not a thing. Um, and of course, you grow up with that and you believe that that's what normal is. And then you see somebody else's family doing stuff and you're just like, well, maybe that's what normal is. Um, but I can't say that I ever wished that roles were replaced or that I got to have her parents and she could have mine instead. Um, I just kind of figured everybody's a little different and my parents just aren't touchy feely people.
Now, even though, oh no, you said she moved away, so you really didn't get to kind of watch a progression after the fact, not per se.
No, I have found her on Facebook once or twice throughout just, to satisfy curiosities. Um, but I've never reached out to her. I've never been like, "Ooh, let's be Facebook friends."
Got it.
Yeah.
Um, well, once you kind of dove into, theater and things like that, what was kind of your next what was your next hurdle after her moving away? What kind of I guess what kind of trajectory did that take you on, and what happened next in the storyline?
Yeah. So fast forward a couple of years with with the theater. I mean, I just like headlong into theater, and what ended up happening, the theater I grew up in, it's a community theater with an education department next to it, so it all kind of works together. And if you're a student, you're expected to be part of the theater. If you're part of the theater, they expect you to take classes if you're in the mindset to do so. And with the big theater productions, my parents would kind of say, you can either have my mom help backstage because she does seamstressing and costumes and stuff like that, or you could have my dad, he's kind of a big dude. He's like 6 feet tall and he's just linebacker size. And they would sit there and be like, the big guy, because he can move sets. So it ended up being this thing where like he and I would do theater stuff. And um, thinking that it was to spend more time with me, I really, really, really dove into that with him. I thought that that was really great. He had always been kind of like really chummy with my older sister and not so much with my little sister and I. It was like, you know, he played favorites and that's how I saw it at the time. And I was like, oh, dad and I do theater together and this is great. And it turns out that that's not at all why he was doing it. It gave him another avenue to like have his own space away from our family. And it gave him a really great time to get into arguments with me. And, you know, when you're sitting in a car, you can't say anything snarky or say the wrong thing because, like, you can't get away from that person. And I remember I was 15, and we were driving home from rehearsal one night, and I cannot for the life of me remember what show we were doing. But I remember he asked me a question, and I had a snarky answer. And next thing I know, he had reached across the car and he had slammed my head into the window. Um, and he said, "You don't have the right to talk to me like that." And I was dazed. I had no idea. Like, I sat there reeling. I was trying to figure out what it was that I had said or what the answer was supposed to have been. And I realized looking back, um, he was really good at asking questions and expecting you to hear a totally different question and give an answer to the question he didn't ask. And so, you know, kind of replaying it, it was he had asked me a question and I answered the question he asked, not the question he actually wanted answered. And because of that, we had that moment and I distinctly remember, you know, my face. Oh, I can still feel it. I remember like my face just squishing up against that window and it was cold and it was hard and it bruised my cheek. And I remember I had like this bruise kind of running here on my face. And I bruise easy. I'm a very pasty person. Um, and it was right after that that I started being really quiet in the car and instead I would sleep on the way to the theater and on the way home. And I found out from other folks, my friends at the theater, that he was actually out back of the theater smoking and talking really crass with other people. And I was just like, that doesn't sound like my dad. But it was a side of my dad I had never seen before. And it was a side of him that I wasn't supposed to have known in the first place.
So, do you think that your dad was like this all the time? It just started to come out, or when you say smoking, smoking cigarettes or drug?
I don't know. I know for a fact that there were cigarettes, but I also know that there were bags of other things that he claimed were catnip, and at the time I didn't know any better. So there's assumptions to be made, but I don't know for sure.
Now that you're, you know, an adult and can kind of recognize things a little differently, or you know maybe you've had those woman to woman talks with your mom. What realistically is their relationship like have you learned anything intricate since being a child? Like, did it make you wonder when you know you did see that they you know don't really display PDA in front of you? Like, you know, where did that kind of rabbit hole take you? It would have been a rabbit hole for me, so I I assume.
True, it was really eye opening as time went on. Like when we were kids, my older sister and I would sit at the top of the stairs and listen to my parents fighting, arguing, and at one point I think she was 7 or 8 and I was like 5, 6, and I said to her, "When are they going to get a divorce?" And you know, it was kind of in the back of our minds, like this is ugly. This is not how this is supposed to be. But then you just kind of write it off, and that's just the way that their relationship is, and they're fine with it. Um, my let's see, my mom ended up moving out with my little sister my sophomore year of college. And it was then that I was like, well, apparently she's done dealing with the shit too. And, you know, years later, like my mom did not talk to me about their relationship at all, because it wasn't really my business, and it really wasn't something she felt comfortable sharing. Um, but then when their divorce was final in 2013, it hit me. I was just like, can we talk about this now? And we've had some really great conversations about their relationship, and she said, he has a mental illness. He is not capable of a relationship with more than one person at a time. And it was very rarely her. It was never me. And he just kind of latched onto that one person. And everybody else didn't measure up. And he would play head games with everybody to either endear them to himself or to have a shunning against him, and then he became the victim.
So that maybe explain why your mother missed a lot of the things that were going on in your life, because she was dealing with a lot of things going in her life. But I have a question, because I don't want it to slip, and I don't want you to take what I'm saying offensive either. I just want people to see, because you really don't hear molestation female on female a lot.
Yeah.
Did it mess with your sexual preference of the confusion if you wanted to deal with a male or a female?
Um, that's a really great question. And yes and no. Um, so I um I don't know how to answer that. Confusion, no. I have always been very comfortable with my feelings, with my attractions. I identify as a bisexual person, because I do enjoy, or not currently, but I have enjoyed sexual relationships with both male and female partners. Um, it took me a long time to get to a point where I was okay with that. Um, so all through high school, I dated one person in high school. We were together 3 years. People thought we were going to be high school sweethearts. It was adorable. People were planning our weddings. And I was like, no. Because I was like, I don't need a long term relationship. And in my head, it was, I don't need to be married. I don't need a long term partner. I don't need like to make my own kids. That's not something that's in the cards for me. I want to be able to love who I love when I love them and enjoy what that looks like in the moment. Um, so I dated this one guy through high school, and it was fine. I, went into college, and actually had a friend, a female friend, and people assumed that we were lesbian lovers because we spent so much time together. And after that became addressed by the school that we were at, because it was a very cloistered Christian school, um, she left, and I stayed, and I was just like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like, and what of it? Even if we were, like, she's my friend. Get over it. Um, and following that, I actually ended up meeting my college boyfriend. I call him the evil ex for very good reasons. Um, but the situation with my girlfriend earlier in life, I don't know if it made me confused, but it definitely opened my eyes to the idea that it's not just a heterosexual world. And so in some ways that was a good thing, but then in other ways it was a very traumatizing way to be introduced to that, which is a theme throughout most of my experiences in relationships.
Thank you for being transparent about that.
Yeah.
We appreciate that.
Yeah. So fast forwarding into college, I started, uh, I don't even know how to introduce this guy. Whew.
This is
So,
unfiltered, unspoken, so you can say however you want to say it.
whew. So this guy, he was in two classes with me on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and he would like, they're back to back classes, so we would end up all of us walking from one class to the other. And then after the second class, I would go check my mail and go back to my dorm. And this guy was in both of those classes, and he also checked his mail after. And I jokingly, now tongue in cheek, referred to him as creepy stalker guy. I didn't know his name because nobody takes roll in college, like they don't care. And I just never paid attention to him. He was just randomly in places that I was. And I happily dubbed him creepy stalker guy. Um, semester two, I moved dorms, and my female friend left school, and I switched dorms. I was like, I'm staying. My now best friend and soulmate became my roommate, and she was like, I don't care if people are talking about you. Like, I'm here. I will vouch for you. Like, this is fine. And the guy she was dating was in the same dorm as creepy stalker guy. So we hung out a lot in said dorm, and I got to know a creepy stalker guy, and he really wasn't a creepy stalker guy. He just was very habitual in the way that he did things, and miraculously was in the same place as I was. And so we got to talking. We would, have walking coffee not dates. Because like I was not dating the guy, I was just having coffee and getting to know another person. And he ended up asking me out on February 4th. And I was like, sure. And my mom freaked out, and she was like, you call him creepy stalker guy. The answer is no, break up immediately. And I was like, no, I do what I want. P.S. When mama says this is a bad idea, I should have listened. I did not. Um, so I just didn't tell her. So here we are kind of repeating these same experiences where it's like, don't tell mom, which has a litany of its own problems. So we dated for the rest of that semester. We were together through the summer. Like we would talk, cell phones, huzzah, and car rides and whatever. And so we stayed in contact. I went up and I visited. We would meet in Pennsylvania and hang out. And I would be like, oh, hanging out with friends from college. So then when I went back to school that fall, he didn't come back. He stayed with his folks in New York. And I stayed at school. That was the semester that my mom ended up leaving my dad. So happily, she was busy dealing with her own stuff, so I was free to do whatever I wanted. Um, my roommate and I decided we were going to be leaving that college. She wanted to get out of the debt situation of school, and that was a bad fit for her because again, cloistered Christian college. And I wanted something different. I wanted a 4-year degree where I was really challenging myself with academics and theater and more art than tight knit college could give me. And he had moved here to Tennessee to take care of his grandmother after his grandfather passed away. And I was like, how sweet is that? And he said, hey, there's a school here that does exactly what you want. It's the 4-year degree with the teaching certificate, all of the drama and the acting stuff. And they just built this beautiful theater building. And I was like, hell yeah, I'm applying. I applied and I got in for the spring semester of that year. So over Christmas, my dad was like, this is great. I'm excited for you. I'm thrilled that you're going to be closer with him. I think that this is a great thing for you. And I will help you however I can to get there. Well, so then it was, I had to tell my mom why I was moving to Tennessee. Um, and I dropped the bomb that that's where the boyfriend was. And she said, creepy stalker guy. And I was like, he's not a creepy stalker guy. He's a really nice person. And if you spent 5 minutes talking to him, you would see what a great person he is. And she was like, no. There were a lot of very colorful things that she said in there. And a lot of conversations between my parents about what my dad knew and how he was condoning this and how he could support this decision that I was making to move to Tennessee for a guy that clearly was not good for me. And he said, she loves him. I firmly believe that this is going to be okay. Um, and I think it would be good for her to go. And so the day before I was supposed to leave, my dad came to me and said, I have to agree with your mom. You can't go to Tennessee. I need you to wait a semester and see how you feel come fall. And I was devastated. I was like, well, what am I supposed to do with a random semester in the middle? So I stayed in Connecticut for that semester, that spring semester. I went to the community college and took care of a couple more gen eds. I made trips to see said boyfriend. We met halfway. Um, we would talk all the time. I didn't live with either of my parents. I was like, I'm not getting in the middle of this because clearly y'all have some issues. Because I couldn't move back in with my dad. That was a bad idea. And I was having some real serious issues with my mom. And so I moved down here in June of 2008. The boyfriend was wonderful for the first, couple weeks. It was exciting and it was new, and he was thrilled to show me around and introduce me to his friends. Um, and then one night, I was ready for a date. I had shown up, and I remember exactly what I was wearing. I had this adorable little jean skirt, that came chastely to my knees. And I had, the layered tank top thing with a little zip up jacket and a pair of block heeled Mary Janes. And he pulled in after work, and I went down to, I walked to his grandmother's house, which is where he was living. And I walked down the stairs to greet him at the car in the garage. And he left the car on, and there was music playing, and he got out of the car, and he just like he he pinned me against his car. And truthfully, I don't remember a whole lot of what happened, but I remember in my throat was stuck the word no, the word stop, the words I don't want this. And next thing I knew, I was laying on this dirty piece of ripped up carpet that was on the floor of the garage, and my clothes were in disarray. And I wanted to cry and scream and run, and I couldn't do any of those things because his body was pinned on top of mine and inside of mine. And I wanted to run away, and I couldn't. And so I just listened to the music. The song was Iris by the Goo Goo Dolls. And afterwards, he was like, I've wanted this for such a long time because I love you. And I didn't know what to do with it because, I was like, but it's not supposed to feel this way. And he said, well, you've wanted this too. And you know that you wanted this with me. And it brought back so many weird feelings of when I was 10, and I was like, no, stop. This doesn't feel right. This isn't good. And that silenced feeling of, you want this. You know that this is what our relationship is building towards. Um, and a month later, July 22nd, I took a pregnancy test. It was positive. I totaled my car that day because I couldn't think straight and nothing made sense, and I was sick to my stomach. And he came to the car wreck site to pick me up, And he said, "What is wrong with you? This isn't like you." And I said, "I'm just feeling really off today." And he goes, "Well, why? What's off?" And I said, "I'm pregnant." And he was so happy. I mean, he was absolutely thrilled that we were going to have a baby. And I was just like, "Are you kidding me right now? Like, what the crap am I supposed to do now?" Um, and again, it was, don't tell anybody. Keep this to yourself. Keep it quiet. Um, so I told nobody, nobody. And um, he was nice-ish. There was a lot of psychological abuse that happened after that. Um, and, he would push
Hey,
me
Melanie,
around. Yeah,
can we catch you real quick? Sid has a question.
yeah, go for it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just gonna interject, and I don't mean to, I guess, make you relive, that moment. But so when he pulled up, was there no like explanation, of what was gonna happen or what was gonna come? Like, like, are you like what? It was just like, get out of the car, pin you, and that's it. Like, there was no words spoken. You had no idea, like, where had you all discussed it previously? Like, it was
No,
just out of the blue.
out of the blue, out of the blue. I mean, we had never even hinted at anything more than snuggling and kissing. Um, so for me, it was like, we're good. Like, it's a very, it was nice to be um, with him in person to see where anything would go. But there was never a conversation about what I wanted or how comfortable I was physically or if sex was even on the table for our relationship. And it was like, I mean, we've been in person for like 5 months. That's a hard no for me. Um, and I felt so helpless to stop it. I was just like, what is happening right now? Like, before I knew it, there, like, it was disarray of clothes and emotions, and I was just like, weird things are happening to my body right now. Um, but there wasn't even a conversation. It was just, "Hey, how are you?" There you go.
So he took no accountability, I'm assuming, at all whatsoever.
None, none.
Wow, wow. And I mean, I don't know if you even like wondered, where his mind was at, or what he was thinking or doing before pulling up. I don't know if you ever crossed that road of even asking, but yeah, it would have threw me for a loop, because it's like, we don't talk, we haven't said anything about this. Like, we skipped so many bases
So
here.
many bases, so many steps, so many conversations. He told me that he had had a hard day. Um, you know, it's really interesting what your brain does when things are muddled and traumatized. Um, because there are moments where I get snapshots of things that happened, but it's never a very clear picture. And I do remember at one point I had, like, I had bristled, and he said, "I've had a really hard day and I need this." And I was just like, "What is this?" And I part of me is like, I should have asked more questions. But to avoid shooting all over my past self, um, there was a lot of it that part of my mind knew he was going to get what it was that he wanted, regardless of what I said or did.
Wow. So you stayed in a relationship with him after this happened?
I did. So I was very shook. I didn't know what the right choice was. I was pregnant. Um, I was going to college. I didn't tell my family. I was freaking out, and the idea of an abortion crossed my mind very briefly, and I was like, I can't do that because that's traumatizing my inner being in a totally new way that I don't need to do. And for me, it was killing a child, my child, and I was like, I can't do that. So then I was kind of I had a notebook, and I think I have burned the notebook since then. Um, but I found this notebook several years later. But it wrote out all of the different options that I had. One of them was giving birth to the child in a state that didn't require me to claim a father, and giving her up for adoption. One was, again, giving birth in a state where he couldn't find me, and then not putting his name anywhere on the birth certificate and raising her myself. Um, the other one was moving back home and letting my family help protect her from him. And I mean, I wrote out all the possibilities, and I was just really torn on what to do. What was the right thing to do? Um, and I don't think I ever really came to a conclusion about what to do because I miscarried at 10 weeks. His grandmother had been out of town on a retreat, so he said, "Well, you're going to come and stay with me the night. It'll be nice to just be the two of us." And um, I woke up that morning in September, and there was blood everywhere. And the alarm clock had just gone off, and the song that was playing was "Iris" by the Goo Goo Dolls. And I laid there, just like holding my body because I was in such agony. Um, and I will never forget what he said. I went to the bathroom. I cleaned up as best I could. I came back to bed, and I said, "I think I just miscarried." And he looked at me as I'm, sobbing, and he said, "It's okay. You'll get over it."
So he was heartless afterwards.
Yep.
Wow. So did you leave him after that?
You would think so, but no.
Did he continue
So
to rape you?
he did one more time. After the miscarriage, my one of my sweet mates, she came into my room one night and she was like, "I know what he's doing to you, and I'm going to help you get out of this." And I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about." That girl came over and just like ripped up the arms on my sleeves, and she was like, "Do you see these bruises?" And I was like, "Yes." "How did you know?" And she goes, "Because he's abusing you." Um, and she said, "I'm going to help you because I've been there."
So he was
And
physically abusing you as well?
he was grabby. When I didn't move as quickly as he wanted or move the way he wanted, he would kind of grab and pull. And I bruise easily, so it just didn't phase me. It just didn't phase me. My birthday was in October. He gave me a diamond ring specifically for the finger that diamond rings go on. And he said to me, "I have your dad's blessing." I went up to Connecticut and talked to him. And I thought, "Oh, hell no." A month later, he was trying to assert some things, and he was like, it's been a while. You must have healed by now. I really want sex. I need this release. Um, I think we should do that again and try for another baby." And I said, "I don't want to." And he said, "What do you mean you don't want to?" And he goes, "You don't want another baby?" And I said, "Not for a long time because I am not anywhere near ready for a baby. I just turned 20." And he says, "Well, we're going to get married." And I said, "I don't think that's what I want right now." And he said, "You don't want to marry me?" And I said, "I didn't say that. I said, I don't want to get married right now. There's a lot of stuff that I need to figure out." And he said, "Well, I want to have sex with you." And I said, "I don't want to have sex." And I remember he grabbed my hair and he pulled me in. Um, and he said, "I am going to fuck you whether you want me to or not." And I pushed him away and I said no. And he threw me onto the bed and grabbed a gun out of his side drawer, the nightstand drawer, and he held it to my head and he said, I will get my way. Not a month later, I broke up with him and I said, we are done. I am never speaking to you again. This is not good for me. This is not what I want. And I deserve to be treated with more respect.
So what exactly was the exit strategy? You know, how did you get yourself out of that and away from him? And was it an easy task? Was he going down easy? It don't seem like it. So how was
It was not super easy. True to her word, my sweet mate orchestrated some really beautiful things. So during finals week, he was relentless. He wouldn't let me study. He wouldn't let me be alone in the library. And I was like, "Look, this is for students only. You have to go." So I would do all of my studying up in my dorm room where he wasn't allowed to be. And my sweet mate stole my phone and like turned it on mute. And she was like, "We're not dealing with this. You get to study. You get to focus." And he used the line, if you love me, you will come and talk to me now. And I went to the doorway, sweet mate in tow, and I said, I can't do this. I am here for my education, and you are standing in the way of me and my education, and that is no longer acceptable to me. You need to leave and lose my phone number. And I ran back up the stairs where he could not be. And he showed up on campus every day for the rest of the semester. And my sweet mate made it so that I had a male friend, not always not always friends that I was super friends with, but friends that she had. And she was like, "Hey, you're going to walk Melanie to class today," um, and uh, and they did. They would. I had an escort from my dorm to the classes, from each class back to wherever I had to go, all semester. Like the rest of there was like a week and a half left, and I went. What did I do that the end of the semester? I was working, and I stayed with my sweet mate, and she she basically orchestrated everything. She was like, "This is how we're just not going to deal with him." Like she organized pickups for any of the things that I had left at his house for storage purposes. We drove them to North Carolina to my grandparents' house, and my grandfather looked at me and said, "Well, weren't you dating that nice young man?" And I said, "He turned out to not be a nice man at all." And he said, "Do I need to get involved?" And I said, "I don't know yet." And he goes, "If you do, I'm an hour away, and I will show up for you." And fortunately, I never needed to call my grandfather to do that, but he would have. And the evil ex ended up leaving Tennessee the February following after dropping off a really inappropriate necklace that looked like a little tombstone with the initials of my daughter on it.
Whoa. Why didn't you get a restraining order?
He had made friends with a lot of the police officers in our area. So it was, again, one of those things where he was like, you can tell them, but they're not going to believe you. And so I never felt empowered to try and do that.
We're starting to get a lot of that said, of people befriending law enforcement, and because they know law enforcement, they're getting away with a lot of stuff. Have you seen him on Facebook?
I blocked him immediately. I changed my phone number. Um, I have looked at where he is a couple of times just to make sure that he has no reason to be in East Tennessee. I found out that he was living up closer to like Erie, Pennsylvania, and my sister lived up there for a couple of years. And every time we would drive into Erie, I would have like complete anxiety attacks. because I was terrified that I was going to see him or see someone who looked like him or hear his car because it was old and rickety and very distinctive sounding. Like, whew, every time I would hear it drive on campus, I would have like a complete just break out into sweat. Unfortunately, I have never seen him. Um, I don't follow any of his whatever he's doing. I unfriended all of his family and just went on living my life.
Good for you.
Definitely.
On the day that my daughter would have been born, I buried the god awful necklace, and every year I sit under the tree where I buried it, and it has become a very sweet place for me to just go and be at peace because um, fast forward several years, my mom moved down here after her divorce, and she realized that I had this weird vibe, is what she called it. She's like, I don't know, you're just vibey weird. And I was like, I don't know what that means. And we ended up having this really honest conversation. Um, I should say, I accidentally forwarded a conversation between my evil ex and I as we were breaking up to my mom, and the baby was mentioned. And she called me and she was like, what baby? And I was like, oh shit. So we had a whole conversation about that. So mom did know after the fact. I did go home at one point and she had me go to a gynecologist to make sure everything was fine, that there was no irreparable damage, that, my body had done what it was supposed to do, the whole 9 yards. Um, but so when she moved down here, she realized that I was holding myself guilty of the loss of my child, guilty for getting pregnant in the first place, and guilty for my breakup. And she looked at me and she goes, none of this was your fault. None of this is what you asked for. And when you asked for help and didn't get it from the people who should have been able to, you felt ostracized. And that wasn't your fault either. And so she came home one day with a list of resources in our area for survivors of domestic violence. And she said, you have options, you have support, and I'm here to help you. And she goes, I wanted to have been there all those years ago, and I wasn't, and I'm sorry. And she said, I felt like you didn't want me to be a part of your life, and I'm here to fix that now. And she said, here's the list. Um, Calling is on you, but whatever you need, I'm here to help. And I made a call, and I was paired with a domestic violence therapist. And I swear that woman saved my life. She talked me through the molestation, the abuse from my father, my rape, my pregnancy, my miscarriage, like all of these things. And whew, it was a lot of hard work. It was a lot of hard work. Um, and one day this therapist looked at me and she said, you deserve so much more. And you deserve to speak up for yourself and to feel empowered to do so. And so, one of the things that I have worked really hard towards doing is making sure that I speak up for myself, that I advocate for myself, and that I speak up for other people who can't speak up for themselves either.
Sorry, mute was stuck, but that's beautiful. That is wonderful. Demetria, do you want to get in your question?
Yeah, I think she just answered it because I was going to give to give the audience advice. And you said you deserve so much more. Speak up for yourself, advocate, and speak up for others.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any other advice to help those that are going through domestic violence or rape, molestation, that will help them start the journey to healing?
Speak up. Find a safe person to talk to. someone that will believe you, and someone that will stand by you to get you out of the ugly situation, because you deserve so much more.
Okay.
Wonderful. Now, we at this point, we call this our shameless plug. So you see your banner scrolling, excuse me, across the bottom.
Yes.
You are going to let the viewers know where they can reach you. If you have any projects or anything that you want to draw traffic to, any even advocacy that you want to throw traffic to, and to sell yourself. Anything you got going on, let the customers know how they can engage.
Absolutely. Again, I'm Melanie Yodkins. You can find me on Facebook or Instagram as Melanie Yodkins. You can also email me anytime at im@melanieyodkins.com. One of the things that I am actively doing is I work with public speaking professionals. So whether you are looking to tell your story or to speak up, I help you find your voice again, to strengthen your voice and to make sure that you are heard, because you do not need to be another unspoken story. Help me help you. Reach out anytime.
I might have to reach out to you and take you up on that.
Do it. I'm here.
Not might, I will. I will. Melanie, we want to thank you for sharing your testimony. Very powerful. So thank you for coming on Unfiltered Unspoken Podcast with City Sid and I. We appreciate it. And I just want everyone to thank you for tuning in. And as we mentioned, we're going to continue to share life experiences from the trauma to healing piece. Some folks have not healed or started the journey. They're going through the acknowledgement process. But we hope that Melanie's story, life experience will connect with someone so they can start the journey to healing. And if you need speaking engagements or to share your story, please reach out to Melanie. We have her information running across the bottom of the screen. And it's a couple things she said. You deserve so much more. Speak up. Find a safe person that will believe in you. Those are things that you can start through the journey of coming out of domestic situation, is to find someone that you trust that can help you through the situation. And we want to thank you again for tuning into Unfiltered Unspoken Podcast, where we're going to continue to share life experiences of others in hopes that it will help someone through their journey of healing. You have a blessed day.